could not ask you a cricket question. Do you think this team is one of the best teams that we have?
Unquestionably, you've got two of the greatest batsmen that have ever lived. I'm a huge Kohli fan. Who isn't? He's probably the best batsman in the world. But I think Pajura's pretty talented though. Those 3 centuries against the Australians were remarkable. I was very interested in Mr. Kohli's remarks afterwards, after the matches were over. And then, of course, he went on to win the one days as well. Yeah, I think this is probably as great a team. My personal hero remains Roll Dravid. I just think his style is so wonderful. It was a privilege to watch him. And of course, Sachin Tendulkar. But from my own days, the Nawab Patoli was a friend when I was a young man, so the love of Indian cricket has been going on for many, many years, and will continue until you're at Lord's.
Thanks. There's a gentleman there, and then
I'm Ratnaswamy from Indian Retail News, and I'd like to know, is your stories based on experience or otherwise?
Totally invention.
Yes.
I always tell young people who come to see me about writing, write about what you know about. If your mother's a hairdresser, write about hairdressing. If you go on a bicycle to work every day, write about that and the people you see and what happens. So I've been in the world of politics, business, the theatre, and so I guess they all get into the books. So I always say, write about it. You feel it, don't you? I mean, like the classic example is Jane Austen, born in a small town. She writes about life in a small town. By the way, we're talking about one of the greatest storytellers who ever lived. First book is about a mother trying to get rid of 4 children, 4 girls. Second book, a mother trying to get rid of 3 girls. Third book, a mother trying to get rid of 2 girls. Fourth book, a girl trying to get rid of. Now, why do you read them all? Why do you turn the page? Because she's a genius. But she wrote about, to take your point, what she knew about. She stuck to that little town and these poor desperate sisters trying to get married. You think, well, what's in that? It's wonderful, that's what's in that. Dickens wrote about London. He wrote about what he saw in London. He saw the poverty, he saw the other things. So you should write about what you feel safe.
Like Bronte's. Bronte's also.
Yeah.
Bronte's.
Yeah. But then where does it matter? You see the Bronte sisters.
Yes, oh yes, 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 yes.
Sir, I'm Rajeshwari from Hyderabad. I met you a long time ago.
I'm sorry, you're fighting that noise over there.
Okay, I'm Rajeshwari from Hyderabad. Hyderabad.
She's from Hyderabad.
Hyderabad,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
We had a lovely time in Hyderabad.
I wanted
That's
to
the mad city where all the IT people are. Yeah, I'll tell you a story about that. I was in Hyderabad, and it's become so middle class that everyone's got a car.
Yeah.
They all have smart cars in Hyderabad.
Yes.
And I was coming from the airport into Hyderabad, and the most beautiful woman passed me when I stopped. In between getting from seeing her the first time to my hotel, I overtook her 7 times. And she overtook me 8 times. Any longer, we'd have been engaged.
You would have seen you more often in Hyderabad then. Sir, I would just like to go back to R.K. Narayan and anything in particular you like about him, because you said he should have won the Nobel.
And R.K. Narayan's genius, going back to your point, R.K. Narayan's genius, he can take a small taxpayer in a tiny village who's got problems with his wife and children. Hello, why don't you all have a go at that? But he makes you turn the page. Macaulay Days is a work of genius. A work of genius.
A little about your new book, sir.
Can we talk about your book?
Well, the inspiration came from Colin Powell. Colin Powell's mother from Jamaica had to make the decision whether to go to Great Britain, take Colin to Great Britain, or take him to the United States. I thought this was a fascinating thing. What if Colin Powell had gone to Britain? He'd never have become an officer in the British Army. He would never have become Foreign Secretary. He could today, because we now have a Pakistani Home Secretary. So he could today. The world has changed. So I thought the concept of putting him in both places, the same human being, a Russian, escaping from Russia, going to Britain, going to America, and then following two separate lives. I thought that was but the inspiration came from Colin Powell.
There's this gentleman also behind it.
Hi, my name is Sweet. I work with the Times Group. I want to know that you just mentioned that you mentioned that real writing, so to speak, happens if you know the place or know the circumstances of your story. But in that case, how do you classify speculative fiction or science fiction? It's completely imaginative.
Yeah.
Another question, can I ask another question as well? I think in your new work, Alexander,
I don't know how they do it. They're in another world, literally. I couldn't do that in 100 years. But I always say to people, when I say write about what you know about, if science fiction is in, don't write science fiction. Write what you feel relaxed with. I couldn't do science fiction.
Hello, Mr. Archer. I wish you luck on your tour. I represent Mind Makers, a new age portal. I have three quick questions for you. The first one is between a short story and a novel, which is the one that you prefer the most? Second, how easy or difficult was it for you to write the Prison Diaries? And third, which is your most favorite work of yours till date?
Famous.
Favorite, your personal favorite.
Remind me of the first question.
Short story. The short story and the
Oh yeah,
novel.
short story and the novel. They're very, very different. The trouble is I get given stories all the time, and some of them are worth 20 pages and couldn't make a full novel. I always think of, because I can tell it very quickly, I always think of the Queen's birthday telegram. Someone in Australia told me that story. This is the story of a man who at 100 years old gets a telegram from the Queen saying congratulations on being 100. And he says, I'm determined to live to 104 so that I can watch my wife get the telegram from the Queen, so that we've both done it. And she doesn't get it. So when she's away, she rings the palace and speaks to her private secretary and says, my wife didn't get the telegram, and I did, and I'm heartbroken. And they said, oh, I'm so sorry. And they went away and looked it up and said she got it 6 years ago. Now you see, that's a gem, but it's worth 20 pages. It's not worth a novel.
How easy or difficult was it for you to write Prison Diaries?
Oh, easy. I have nothing else to do. What was the third question?
The third was, which is your most favorite work of yours?
Of my own. Well, the public have decided Cain and Abel.
Thank you.
32 million copies. It's on its 124th reprint. And it's 40 years old this year. It's 40 this year. I'm sentimental about Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less.
I love it.
Because it was my first. The critics, why should we listen to them? The critics, I think Paths of Glory is the best thing I've done.
Questions. Okay.
And actually the latest one. This is, and it's
Here.
Hi, I'm Carl and I'm a blogger. Just wanted to know how much has the city of London influenced your writing or your characters as such?
I think the city you live in is bound to influence you. I've lived there the first 20 years, 18 years of my life, I was in a little seaside town in the West Country called Western-super-Mare. But I've spent most of my life in London. So yes, it's bound to influence you. When Indians often say to me very, very kindly, why don't you write a big Indian novel? And I say, I can't. I wasn't born here, I wasn't brought up here. I think I understand India, but not very well, and I come again and again and again and again. But an Indian must write a great Indian novel. If you say, I say, would you like to write a book about London? And they say, I've never been to London. And I say, well, it's a heck of a strain to write about. Particularly, they catch you out on religion. They catch you out on tiny things that you just get wrong.